Hey everyone, Brent here with a review of Kaiba, anime series of 12 episodes that came out in early 2008. As usual, this will be a no spoiler review. Anything I talk about is just anything that's kind of explained in the first episode is just sort of overall world background details. And I want to start off by saying that this is a very weird experimental kind of anime. I mean, you'd expect to see this more in like a European animation art festival funky thing. So like this is the kind of world where your memories can be just sucked out and put into a memory chip and punked into another body, just boom. And some memories can be removed, just easily. So very odd kind of a world. And indeed, the first thing I want to talk about is character design, and this has a very retro sort of 50s, 60s, 70s animation style to it. The character designs look like Cyborg 009 or some Osamu Tezuka work, Astro Boy or whatever. So it definitely takes some getting used to. And I mean, I'm more used to retro stuff, so I didn't have much of a problem with it, but it is definitely unusual. I would say by the end of the first episode, you'll know whether you'll enjoy it or not. Partly because the first episode is very exciting, it's very mysterious. You get this feeling of big stuff going on, and I mean, by the end of it, I was feeling, well, I really want to see what's going to happen next. So I think if you get to that ending and you're not put off by the character designs, you'll be fine. And it's helped by the fact that the direction overall is quite good. Again, it's experimental, so a lot of weird camera angles and a lot of just sort of odd cinematography. But I think it works a lot. And again, I think if you don't mind that, and if you're willing to be open to that, I think it's definitely memorable and memorable. Now, the one thing I think it falls down in a bit is the writing. I mean, by the end of it, I was okay, but there's a lot of problems with sort of confusing something being dense and impenetrable with being deep. There's a fair amount of stuff that's not explained by the end of this series. And, I mean, I don't need everything to be explained, but with such a weird world and starting with such big mysteries and such big questions, I felt not quite cheated, but like they could have gone a little bit further with explaining some things, or at least just not making it quite as weird. The other problem too is the pacing. Like the first, 2/3 or so are almost entirely episodic. Just like the main character and this one character, another character, another character. And that has the advantage of setting up the world and it's sort of explaining how things go by seeing how different characters interact. But by halfway through, I was kind of like, I don't know if I want to watch any more of this because it's just sort of story of the week kind of stuff. Fortunately, the last third of it is almost entirely big plot, explaining what's going on and dealing with the whole big mystery. So I think by the end, I certainly had no problems with it, and I think it worked. But I think you really have to stick with it to enjoy it and to think it went well. Now, the characters are kind of cliched, but I think that's a good thing. I mean, they're archetypes. You have the confused guy who's part of a big mystery. You have the sweet girl, all these things. But again, when everything else is so mysterious and so weird and different, I think something needs to be familiar. And because these characters are so archetypical, the relationships can be very interesting. You don't need to spend a lot of time explaining why this character feels this way. They can just start interacting, and it's very interesting very early on. So I like that a lot, especially because there's a lot of motifs in the series. I mean, this is a show about memory, it's a show about individuality, about ethics in the face of very morally ambiguous and very morally complicated actions by characters. Is this good? Is this bad? So there's a lot of that which I found very interesting, and I think makes the show a lot more than just a visually weird show. Now, that's helped by the fact that the characters have very distinctive voices, not just in terms of voice acting, which is quite good, but also like low-class characters talk like low-class characters. A lot of contractions and things, and higher-class characters speak differently, and you get just a lot of very distinctive ways of speaking, which works very well. Now, Is the world believable? I want to talk about. Hard to say. I mean, again, the world is so weird. How can you say if it's realistic or not? There's one point where a character reacts with nausea at something that happens, and I don't know if that thing really is evil, or if that character is just having an overreaction of is just very sentimental or something. I couldn't tell, and it was never really made clear. So again, maybe that was intentional. I don't know, but I had some problems there where I just couldn't tell what was necessarily real. Now, fortunately, this is a Madhouse show, so it looks good. There's good animation all throughout, and the color palette, art direction, fantastic. If you like sort of the muted color palette of Haibane Renmei, shows like that, where there's a lot of attention, again, like a European experimental film, a lot of attention made to color. It's great. There's a lot of attention made to that, and it's just really, really interesting. And Madhouse is able to do a lot because they know how to make a show with whatever budget and make it look good. Now, is the motion realistic? Again, it's such a weird world, and the characters' bodies are so retro. There's a fair amount of squash and stretch. Characters can do weird things with their bodies, and I can't judge, and I think that's perfectly okay. That's just the world they've done. Unfortunately, they do a good job of making the action pretty clear throughout. No main problems there. So, I mean, by the end of the show, I really enjoyed it. I had some issues with it going through just because of sort of the rocky writing and the very retro character designs. Just get a little old after a while. There's a reason why the anime standard sort of character designs, the big eyes and so forth, and the very complex eyes are standards because they're pretty to look at. This just it's different, and now by the end, I mean, I felt that the ending definitely pulled everything together. I really enjoyed the ending. I had some issues in terms of just explaining everything that was going on, and the ending didn't feel like it quite provided absolutely everything I wanted, but the fact that, I mean, overall, for a show to be this experimental, and also this enjoyable, and also this comprehensible, is a remarkable thing. I mean, I'm impressed. So if you have any comments, please feel free to post them down there. We'd love to know what you think. I just really hope that more people get to see Kaiba, because it's definitely an interesting thing out there, and I think anime fans would benefit from seeing more weird stuff like this, and weirdness is good.